All right, I'm bringing you a brand new duffel bag tutorial right here in this video. We're gonna go through all the steps, and this video is gonna be attached to the pattern that is about to release for this, okay? That'll get updated. This new duffel bag pattern, everybody's been asking for it, so I know that people are wanting to learn how to make it, and the pattern is gonna go with it, and it's gonna have every step that you need. This includes a new type of scrunchie pocket, new straps, because these straps are easier to source. The straps I was using previously got sold out and there's no known return date. So, and then we've got little tabs here, zipper all the way, and the straps go all the way around into the bottom seam. So let's get started. I need to work. All right, first things first, you're gonna cut your fabric out. All of the dimensions are gonna be listed in the pattern. You will have a cut list, and you do not have to print out the papers and piece together the pattern. You can just cut your fabric based off of the cut list. It's totally up to you. I know some people like to print everything out. So once you get your outer layer, fusible fleece, and your liner fabric all cut, you are ready to begin. All of the materials that I'm using are either from Amazon or Hobby Lobby for this bag, and I have everything linked in Amazon. I do buy my duck cloth from Hobby Lobby. It's $7.99 a yard, but I always wait until the week that the fabric is on sale, so it'll be 30% off. That definitely saves money over time. Outer fabric is the remainder of the Turkish towels. So I'm using the Turkish towels for my seaside tote bags. And then this is what I get out of making a medium-sized tote bag, and then I get a large size duffel bag with my fabric, leftover fabric. You can use any fabric you want for this duffel bag. You do not have to use Turkish towels. You can use canvas, cotton, whatever you want. You're also going to need zipper tape or a standalone zipper. I buy it in big rolls and I cut to the size I need for all of my projects. This is on Amazon. It comes with a bag of metal zippers. And then you're gonna cut out your pockets. And this is a new little thing that I'm doing for the duffel bag specifically. I'm using a piece of this fabric that's scrap and a piece of this fabric that is scrap, all cut from the same towel. As you can see, this towel is the red and navy blue one and white. So I am going to go ahead and put my pocket together and then add my straps. So let me show you how we do that. I've already got both of my panels cut to size. We're gonna make the pocket. So I've got my first piece cut like this. This is optional that you do this step, but I just think it adds a little bit something extra to the pocket, makes it a little bit special. So what we're gonna do is we are going to sew these two together. I like my stripes to go up and down, and I'm making sure that I attach it to where the blue is on the top, and then you've got some red down here. That's only if you're using these specific towels. You can do that any way you want with whatever fabric you want. I'm just gonna straight stitch this right across the top. If you're using one-sided fabric, you're gonna wanna make sure your right sides are together. I sewed this together. So right now I have it matched up like this upside down. I'm gonna fold it once. I'm not gonna sew yet. I'm gonna fold it one more time right along my seam I just made. This just kind of saves time. You can sew it in multiple steps if you want. The object here is to leave enough room inside this to add an elastic band in here, and we're gonna do that in the next step. So let me go ahead and sew this up just so that it's all clean right here. Here's what my pocket is looking like right now. I hemmed the bottom edge of it as well. So now we don't have any raw edges except for here and here, and our straps are gonna cover that up. So I'm not gonna waste my time hemming this side because nobody is gonna see that. Let's add some elastic to this. This is a bodkin. You can get these on Amazon or at Hobby Lobby. They're very inexpensive, but if you're gonna be doing a lot of projects with elastic, I highly recommend using one of these. All you do is they're sort of like tweezers. You stick the end of your elastic in it and you slide this little loop down and it pinches. And so now my elastic is secure in here, and this is a rounded tip on it. And so what I do is I just run my bodkin right through here, and it makes it so much easier. I like it better than using anything like a paper clip or anything like that, but you can use a paper clip, a safety pin, other things. All right, and so I'm gonna unhook my bodkin when I get to the other side. Now, my elastic is barely sticking out right here. I'm gonna sew a couple times over this just to lock it in on this side. Now I'm going to pull my elastic on this end since it's sewed in right here and size out the width I want my straps to be and how big I want my pocket to be. And I'm thinking about right here. It'll be in the tutorial exactly what I do, but this is about 6 to 7 inches of elastic. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sew right here and then cut this off. Now we have our little pocket. Let's get this put onto our first panel. I just like to take a fabric marker. I use this one, and I'm gonna mark the top corners of where I'm going to put my pocket, And then I'm gonna go ahead and sew both sides down and then scrunch the middle, the bottom, and I will show you the process of that. It's looking rough at this stage, but I promise it's gonna look cute. I'm gonna show you before I put it on the sewing machine how you're gonna scrunch your pocket. So this is the bottom of the pocket. You wanna make sure that you're kind of sewing along a straight line from this point to this point. And as you go, you can pin this down ahead of time if you want. I just tend to map it out like this and create some little pleats. And then I sew a straight line over it. And I live to make it uneven because it's a scrunchy pocket. It doesn't matter. It's very forgiving looking once it's all sewed together, so you can't really make any mistakes. Okay, how are we doing so far? The pocket's on right here. I'm gonna lay this back down on my mat and I am going to get my straps prepped. I'm using this beige cotton webbing. I find that it is really easy to work with. So I'm gonna measure mine out. The measurements will be in the pattern for how long my straps are. You can really make them whatever length you want. So we're gonna cut to the exact same length. Also, this strap is more cost effective than the straps I was using previously. Just for reference, this is what I was using previously. It is more like a nylon feeling, and maybe they're a little bit more durable. However, these are a lot softer and I like working with them. No need to do anything with your edges and worrying about fraying them because we're gonna take the straps all the way down to the bottom of the bag and they're gonna get sewn into the bottom seam. So that is one perk of this design. I'm gonna take my strap and lay it out over this raw edge right here. And I'm gonna be looking at this stripe right here and how much gap I have to know kind of whether or not I'm in a straight line. That is only gonna happen if you're using a striped fabric like this. I'm gonna mark the outside edge of where this is supposed to be so that I make sure I am sewing in a straight line the entire way up. All right, for reference, we're at the top of the bag. I'm gonna mark 3 to 4 inches down. I think I'm gonna go 3 on this bag from the top. We haven't put our zipper in yet, so I wanna give room for the zipper. And when I make these bags, I don't like the strap to go all the way up to the zipper because then it doesn't open properly. So let me show you an example. So here's the finished tote right here. We wanna have this gap right here. So if you were to take your strap all the way to the edge, it would be really kind of awkward. So let's leave this opening. And so we're gonna mark out uneven spacing to put our straps on our panels. Just gonna mark out my other side real quick before we go to the sewing machine. I wanna make sure I'm about the same distance apart as I was on this side. So marking down here and all the way up here. I am marking my straps to end 2.5 inches above the pocket. If you want to, you can pin this down before you start sewing. I do these all the time, so I'm pretty comfortable with just using it and working it with my hands. One thing that you're gonna need to do is make sure that your strap comes all the way to the edge. You don't have to hang over the edge at all if you don't want to, because this is gonna be our middle seam, and so we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance right here anyway, so it's gonna get trapped in there. You're gonna see I marked where I wanna stop my strap, so I'm gonna keep an eye on that as I finish up my sew line right here. And I'm using a straight stitch right here. I haven't used any other stitch but a straight stitch so far. And right there, now you're gonna wanna back stitch at the end, just like that. I've reset myself back at the bottom and I'm gonna do a straight stitch up this side as well, making sure I'm trapping in all of this frayed edge in here. All right, I've got one side of my strap on. Now here's my other side. I'm going to readjust my fabric, get myself situated. I'm gonna make sure that this is not curled. It needs to lay flat all the way through before I sew on the second side. I'm looking for my little mark that I made to know where to stop my sew line, and it is right there. One little tip, I don't know if you know this or not, but I like to sew my straps from bottom up because if you sew from top down, I feel like your length might get a little bit wonky. I don't know. It might just be a me thing. Uh-oh. Oh, I was like, that's my clip. All right, first strap is on. She's looking good and pretty straight. I'm happy with that. Now, I want to lock this top part of the strap in a little bit better. And so what I'm going to do is where I stop my sew line, I'm going to run this way with a zigzag stitch back and forth like 4 or 5 times. All right, and that's gonna like really secure it in up here. One thing that helps me is I mark exactly where I want my zigzag stitch to go right here. That way I'm working in a straight line and it doesn't get all slanted and wonky, because sometimes this fabric likes to pull. Once I make this line, I cover up that entire ink line, even though it's gonna disappear over time. I did it on both sides. So you see how it's like extra secure right there? I'm gonna do that on the other side too. Beautiful. Here is what we're working with so far. We are about to add our straps to the back panel before we move forward. I did just so on my label. I home make my own labels, and I have a tutorial video already posted, and I'm working on writing a vlog so it's easier to find. So check my website soon if you want to learn how to make these. If you're a perfectionist, you probably want to get your tape measure out for this part, and maybe fast forward if this is going to bother you. But the fastest way I have found to match my straps on both sides, I'm going to lay my outer fabric that I've already put the strap on face down, lay everything out flat the best you can, and then I'm going to lay my other panel face up. I'm going to match up my stripes because I have a striped fabric, so that's going to kind of help me line everything up and make sure that I'm working in a straight line and that all my lines are going to be even. And then I am going to take my strap that I have already cut for the other side and lay it across here to make sure I am even. So my goal is that when I sew my seams at the bottom, that my straps are going to line up perfectly. Let me show you an example. I did pretty dang good on this one. I want those to line up. If they don't, it's okay. You do not have to be a perfectionist. This is a homemade bag. Not everything can be perfect. Repeat after me. Not everything can be perfect. I have mistakes all the time. All right, and then I'm gonna take my marker and mark my way up so I know where I'm going. Map it out. I've got it all mapped out. I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew this down. All right, second panel is on. Now it's time to do our zippers and get going with assembling the bag and our lining. I'm gonna take my zipper tape and I'm gonna measure across, and I'm gonna give myself about 2 inches past. You don't need to do that much, but I like to have a little bit of extra room on my zipper tape so that I don't run my zipper off the end. Give that a cut. I'm gonna add my zipper. I've also posted a few videos on how to add your zipper on here. And if you read the comments, a lot of people have different suggestions and methods that work for them. My method is to put one end on, stick the other end in, and then pull back and forth, and it usually goes on immediately. I'm gonna take a clip and just clip the end of my zipper so my zipper doesn't run off the end like that. If you've ever made a boxy makeup bag, this is what you're gonna do. This is the same steps for that. You're gonna take one of your outer panels, face up. Make sure your strap is out of the way. Zipper face down across the top, just like this. Let it overhang on both sides. And then you're gonna take your liner fabric and line it up and make your sandwich, just like this. I'm gonna go through and clip. Now we're gonna run a stitch, a straight stitch from here all the way down. You want to back stitch on both ends just to lock it in. And then I'm gonna show you up close what that looks like. I'm trying to give you the best view I can of this, but you can see where the zipper is right here, and I can feel it with my finger. And so when I'm sewing, I'm gonna keep my finger along this edge right here to make sure that my zipper foot is lined up right against it. Now I'm also in a straight stitch on my machine. Now I'm on the straight stitch. It is adjusted all the way left of my needle. My needle is all the way on the left side. So it's as close as it can get to the zipper, and that's how I get away without using a zipper foot. I don't think it's necessary. My machine came with the zipper foot and I don't really like using it. So I finished that stitch. We're gonna open it up, flatten it out, and do a top stitch. So at this point, a lot of people like to iron. I just go through and press it flat with my fingers like this, and then I make sure it stays flat throughout the whole process of top stitching it. So I'm gonna get it all loaded up in here. I'm gonna try and show you what the top stitch looks like. Just like that. You wanna get it really close. I'm trying to go about 1/8 of an inch from the the edge. One thing I will tell you is I always sew with my panel on the left side. So if I'm sewing a zipper, like I never sew it when it's over here. I flip it because I like to be able to reach underneath this flap and pull my liner taut so that it doesn't curl up underneath here. So sometimes it can get dragged and like curl up and you'll get like a crease and it'll bubble and then it'll get caught in your zipper. So you want to make sure that it's really pushed flat. That's why ironing helps, but you know, I'm lazy and I really don't like ironing. So I'm going to do anything I can to stay away from it. Now we have a really nice top stitch all the way down. It looks beautiful. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So by doing that, we're going to start with our unused outer panel, and then we're going to use our zippered panel and put it face down. Line everything up with your edges. This is where I go and I make sure my stripes are lining up at the top. And then you take your liner fabric, put it face down, and then you're going to clip everything together and do a sandwich, and then you're going to sew the next 2 steps the same way we just did the last 2 steps. Before I top stitch my second panel down from my zipper, I like to roll the other edge up and just clip it with the straps in it so that it doesn't get in my way. And that way it glides through here just perfectly. Both panels have zippered and top stitched in, so let's make our zipper tabs right here. To make the zipper tab, we're going to need 2 tabs. So I cut 1 piece of longer fabric about 8 inches by 4 inches. So you want to fold it in half, kind of make your crease like this. You can iron during this step. You know I'm not going to be ironing. And you're going to fold this in half. I like this because I can use my stripes as a guide to keep everything straight. Fold this side in half. And then fold the whole thing in half. And you're going to sew up both sides. Now we have this one long strip and it's sewed on both sides. I'm going to fold this in half. And we're going to cut it. Here are our 2 zipper tabs. So this is going to be our tab, and we're going to fold this in half and add it to both ends of our zippers. Okay, so here's the thing. This is where you are going to want to go ahead and open up your zipper. If you don't open it at this step, it's going to get locked on the outside. Take your zipper tab. I'm using the red and white because it goes with this towel set, and you can use whatever you want. And then I'm going to pick the prettiest side that shows. I'm going to fold it just in half like this, and I'm going to place it along the seams right here. You can let it overhang just slightly, and then I'm going to sew it right up in here. When you sew over a zipper, just go slow. Once I get to the actual zipper tab, I like to backstitch and kind of lock it in a little bit better because this is thick fabric. Make sure your zipper is pushed together. Now that we are locked in, we can take this clip off. We can trim this off too. And here is our zipper tab. We are on the home stretch, guys. We've got both of our zipper tabs done, panels done. All we're gonna do now is sew it up and box our corners. So first step to that, I'm trying to give you enough space so you can see me. This is a big old bag. Okay, so we're gonna fold our outer panels together and then our liner panels together. So we want to clip these together and sew right here, and then clip our liner fabric together and sew along the bottom and leaving a gap in the middle so that we can turn our bag right side out. So let's go ahead and do that. This is also where I like to line up my straps. Make sure everything is lined up if you're using stripes. Take this to the sewing machine and only sew this long edge right here. I'm about to cross over my straps. I'm going to take it slow because we're going through several layers right here. I use a jeans needle through my whole process, but I wanted to also tell you I backstitch when I go over this. So I go over, backstitch, and come back just to give it a little extra stability. We got both of our edges sewn. I left a gap in the middle of this liner fabric. Now, what you're going to do is get your clips ready. You're going to take this and you're going to flatten. You're going to flatten this out, and you're going to line your middle seam of your outer fabric up with the zipper. Just like this. Flatten it out on both sides so that your bottom seam is straight. And then you're going to do the same thing to the liner. Make sure the seam is right across your zipper. So you're making a sandwich. All right, So you should have the seam zipper with your tab and then the seam, and they should all be stacked on top of each other. Clip this down. And then do it to both sides. Like that, right? Now you're gonna go through and I do a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch seam allowance across this line right here, and just go slow when you go over this middle part, and try and flatten your seam out as you sew over it. Okay, so we have sewn this edge down, this edge down. This is what we're looking like right here, and we are gonna flip it right side out. Now, you can cut off this extra bulk if you'd like. And also, if you forgot to open your zipper, you can find it in here and rip it open. I do that every time. I never open my zipper. I just feel like my bag stays together better. I get straighter lines if I leave my zipper closed during that process. This is my favorite part. Well, it's not my favorite part doing this, but it's my favorite step to see how it's looking. Okay, reach your hand in, poke out your corners. I sometimes use a chopstick like this. Make sure you have caught all your seams. You don't have any liner exposed on the outside. Everything looks really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and close up my liner. All I'm doing is taking it and folding it inward, just like this. You can use clips if that helps you. And then I'm doing a top stitch to close that up. I'm just gonna run that right through the sewing machine. All right, this is what we're looking like now. So all we have to do is box out our corners, and we're doing a French seam. I like to sew my corners first before I cut any bulk off, and that way I don't lose my liner inside. I have a whole tutorial on how to do that, but if you just follow along with this, you'll understand what I'm doing. I do my corners one of two ways. I either use this guide that I created, which is some cardstock, at 3 inches, and I mark my line right here, and that's what I'm gonna do today. Or I actually measure out 3 inches from my needle right here all the way out here to 3-inch mark, and I put a piece of washi tape as a guide up here. So that's like 2 different options you can do. Today we are going to do it like this. So what you want to do is make sure you get your seam straight down the middle of the triangle, and you want to put your hand in here and flatten. Let me get a better look. You want to put your hand inside here, flatten out your lining so it doesn't get all crinkled up in there. And then you want to try and get your line, your seam right here, as flat as possible. And that is why I have marked a line down the center of this triangle too. So I'm going to line up everything, make sure my seam is lined up. Then I'm going to mark it with my marker all the way across there. And then I like to take one clip and clip it on this side before I run it through my machine, just so it doesn't move while I'm in transport. And I'm not going to cut the camera. I'm going to show you how I bring it over. So make sure everything is there. You can still see my line a little bit. All right, that is a box corner. We're gonna cut this bulk off, but we're gonna do all 4 corners real quick. Okay, we have our box corners. Here they are, beautiful. I'm gonna take my fabric scissors and I'm gonna cut as close as I can to the stitch line without cutting your stitches, because your bag will fall apart. I'll show you how close I cut. About that close. All right, and you're gonna do that to all 4 corners. All right, this is where we are now. We're really close, we're 1 step away. You're gonna flip your bag inside out, push out all your boxed corners, and then we are gonna sew those closed so that you cannot see a raw edge. This will also give your bag some structure. That's why I really like doing a French seam on my box corners. Push everything out like this. And I really do like to clip this step, because otherwise your fabric can kind of roll underneath you, underneath the foot, and like kind of mess you up a little bit and get wonky. So we're gonna clip that, and then we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch in, and you have to sew wide enough along this line right here so that you are closing in that raw edge. If you sew too close, your raw edge is gonna still be showing, and it's gonna be very frustrating. This is what it looks like. Guys, we are all done. So after you do your 4 corners, you can flip your bag right side out and admire your hard work. Also, don't forget to clip your tails. I've got them all over, so I'm gonna have to do that real quick. How stinking cute is this? The perfect weekender bag. I love it. All right, Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.